The sun was high, and the compound of River State Polytechnic buzzed with activity. Louis tightened his grip on his admission document as he pushed through the sea of students. He had one goal: finish his screening before the office closed. "Abeg shift," a boy with a sweaty face hissed, shoving past him. Louis sighed but kept moving, his focus unwavering. He adjusted his shirt, wiped his brow, and approached the long queue outside the admission block. Then he saw her. She wasn't just beautiful, she was breathtaking. She walked past the queue, her steps graceful, her long braids swaying gently, her skin glistened in the sun, a deep ebony that seemed to capture light itself. Louis froze. "Guy, you dey okay?" someone asked, shaking him. But Louis couldn't answer. His breath hitched and his surroundings blurred. All he saw was her, a vision of elegance and poise. She had a presence that silenced the noise around him. "Who be that?" Louis asked the next guy to him. "That? Oh, na Nancy, one hot babe for the school. But bros, forget am. She no dey send anybody." Louis didn't respond. He knew what he wanted. For the first time, it wasn't just about making it through the day or the semester. He wanted Nancy, and he would do whatever it took. Louis couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, Nancy's face appeared like a vision. Her flawless ebony skin, her smile, small but confident, as though she knew her worth. He sighed, staring at the ceiling of his small hostel room. "Bros, wetin dey do you?" his roommate, Chike, asked. "You dey behave like person wey see ghost." Louis turned to him. "Chike, I don fall o." "Fall? How?" Chike sat up, rubbing his eyes. "I bin fall for that queue today." "Guy, forget queue. I don see wife today." Chike burst into laughter. "Wife? For this your first week? No be who chop belle full dey find love? Guy, face your books." Louis ignored him, his mind racing. How could he approach her? She didn't look like the type who would be impressed by just looks. He had to plan carefully. The next morning, Louis spotted Nancy near the cafeteria. She was sitting with two other girls, laughing at something one of them said. He felt his palms grow sweaty as he walked towards her. "Excuse me," Louis said, his voice trembling slightly. Nancy looked up, her eyes piercing but kind. "Yes?" "Hi, my name is Louis. I just wanted to say you look really beautiful." Her friends giggled, but Nancy didn't smile. Instead, she tilted her head and asked, "Is that all?" Louis swallowed hard. "No, I mean yes. I just wanted to introduce myself." "Well, Louis, thanks for the compliment, but I am busy," Nancy said, turning back to her friends. Louis stood there, stunned, as the girls resumed their conversation. Chike was right. This wasn't going to be easy. But as he walked away, Nancy glanced at him over her shoulder. It was quick, almost unnoticeable, but it gave Louis hope. The day after his awkward introduction, Louis couldn't shake the memory of Nancy's dismissive tone, but there was something about her, something that whispered she wasn't entirely uninterested. That quick glance she gave him lingered in his mind, like a tiny flame refusing to die. At the hostel, Chike wasn't helping. Bros, I beg you, leave that babe matter. Girls like her no dey get time for ordinary guys like us. Louis shook his head. I no dey ordinary. I go show you say I fit get her attention. Chike laughed, sprawling on his bed. Okay, Mr. Loverboy. But make sure say this mission impossible don't affect your screening. The next time Louis saw Nancy was during a seminar at the lecture hall. She sat in the middle row, jotting notes with precision, her braided hair resting on her shoulder. Louis took a deep breath and decided he needed to take a smarter approach. Good afternoon, he said after the session, catching up with her as she walked to the parking lot. She looked at him, eyebrows raised. You again? Yes, Louis said, smiling nervously. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I thought maybe we could talk properly this time. I noticed you are really focused during lectures. What course are you studying? Mass communication, she replied curtly. That's great. I'm in political science. I've always admired people who study mass communication. You must be a really good communicator. Nancy stopped and looked at him. What do you want, Louis? I want us to be friends, Louis said earnestly. No strings attached, just friends. She chuckled softly, her first real smile. We'll see about that. Goodbye, Louis. As she walked away, Louis felt his heart swell with a strange mixture of relief and determination. A door had cracked open and he was ready to push it further. The days turned into weeks, and Louis found himself crossing paths with Nancy more often. Sometimes it was just by design, strategically placing himself near her favorite spot on campus. Other times it was sheer luck. Each time, he made sure that interactions were brief but memorable. One afternoon, Louis spotted Nancy sitting under a large mango tree near the library, her nose buried in a book. He hesitated, then decided to approach. Hi, Nancy, he said, standing a respectful distance away. She glanced up, her expression neutral. I'm not here to bother you. I just thought you might like this. He extended a neatly wrapped pack of roasted granules. It's fresh. I know how tough studying can be. Nancy raised an eyebrow but accepted the snacks. Thanks. So what is the catch? No catch, Louis said, grinning. Just friend helping another friend. She smiled faintly, breaking off a piece of granite. You are persistent, Louis. I'll give you that. Well, persistency runs in my family, Louis replied, sitting on the grass a few feet away. My grandma always say, if you want something, go for it. Nancy laughed, a soft, genuine sound that made Louis' heart skip. Your grandma sounds wise, she said. She was, Louis said, leaning back against the tree trunk. So, what is the book about? They spent the next 1 hour talking about books, school, and life. For the first time, Nancy let her guard down. Louis learned she had dreams of becoming a journalist, inspired by her late father, who had been a reporter. By the time they parted ways, Nancy's smile lingered longer. Louis felt a surge of hope. The wall she had built around her was beginning to crack, and he was determined to see what lay beyond. The friendship between Louis and Nancy began to blossom. Though Nancy kept her distance emotionally, she allowed Louis into her world bit by bit. Louis, on the other hand, was patient, knowing that rushing things might ruin the fragile connection they had built. One sunny morning, Louis spotted Nancy struggling with a bag full of groceries outside the campus mini market. "Nancy," he called, jogging towards her. She turned, her face lighting up briefly before reverting into her usual calm expression. "Louis, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said, taking the bag from her without waiting for permission. "Let me help you with that." She hesitated for a moment but eventually nodded. "Thanks, I wasn't expecting anyone to help." "That's what friends are for," Louis said, smiling. As they walked, Nancy glanced at him. "You are always so eager to help. Why?" "I guess it's just who I am. Besides, I enjoy spending time with you." Nancy chuckled. "You are something else, Louis." They reached her hostel, and as he set the bag down at her door, Louis noticed the tiny smile she gave him. "Thanks again," she said softly. "Anytime," he replied. "And Nancy, I know you are busy, but maybe we could grab suya later, just as friends." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but just as friends." Louis left, his heart racing. It wasn't much, but it was a step forward. Later that evening, Louis waited at the campus suya joint, his palms sweaty despite the cool evening breeze. When Nancy arrived, dressed in a simple Ankara top and jeans, Louis couldn't help but stare. "You are late," he teased as she sat down. Nancy rolled her eyes playfully. "Traffic from my room to here was bad." They both laughed and the tension melted away. Over plates of suya and cold malt drinks, they talked about their lives. Nancy opened up about her childhood, her street mother, and dreams of traveling the world. "You are full of surprises, Nancy," Louis said, leaning forward. "And you are full of compliments," she replied, her tone teasing but warm. The night ended with handshake, but for Louis, it was good as a kiss. Nancy was beginning to trust him, and he vowed not to let her down. Louis and Nancy's growing bond didn't go unnoticed. Nancy's beauty and grace had always drawn attention, and now rumors began swirling about her friendship with Louis. "Louis, you sure say you dey safe?" Chike asked one night. "Nancy get plenty admirers, so some of them no go like this your closeness." Louis shrugged. "Let them talk. Nancy likes me and I'm not afraid of anyone." But Chike's warning wasn't baseless. One of Nancy's admirers, Tunde, a wealthy student known for throwing lavish parties, had been watching them closely. "I hear say you dey follow Nancy," Tunde said one day, cornering Louis outside the lecture hall. "Better mind yourself. She no be for small boys like you." Louis met Tunde's gaze, refusing to back down. "Nancy can decide who she wants to be with. It is not your business." Tunde smirked. "You will see about that." As Tunde walked away, Louis clenched his fist. He knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. but he was ready for a challenge. The whispers on campus grew louder as Louis and Nancy's bond increased and deepened. Everywhere Louis went, people either gave him knowing looks or whispered behind his back. Some were envious, others skeptical. "Guy, this your wahala don dey loud though," Chike said one evening as they walked to the hostel. "Even the lecturers don dey hear about una matter." Louis rolled his eyes. "Abeg, let them talk. Na their mouth dem go use tire." Chike shook his head. "I just dey warn you, Tunde no go let this thing go like that though. You know say rich boys like him no dey play fair." Louis didn't reply, but Chike's words stayed with him. That night, as he lay on his bed, he wondered if he had bitten off more than he could chew. Meanwhile, Nancy was dealing with her own share of backlash. Her friends constantly reminded her of the other men vying for her attention. "Nancy, I don't get it," Ada said one afternoon as they sat in her room. "Why, Louis? You know you could do better." Nancy frowned. "What's better, Ada? Money, flashy cars, those things don't matter to me." Ada scoffed. "It's not just about money. You deserve someone who can give you the world." Nancy sighed. "Louis gives me peace, Ada. That's more valuable than anything else." Ada shook her head. "Just be careful. People are watching and not everyone is happy with you." Nancy struggled, but deep down, she felt the weight of Ada's word. It started subtly. A threatening note slipped under Louis' hostel's door. "Stay away from Nancy if you value your life," the note read. Louis stared at these words, his heart pounding. Who could have sent it? Tunde? Or one of his friends? "What is that?" Chike asked, leaning over Louis' shoulder. Louis crumpled the note quickly, trying to act casual. "Nothing important." "Guy, I see wetin dey there. You won't die because of woman." Louis shot him a sharp look, his chest tightening. "Nancy is not just any woman. She's worth fighting for." Chike sighed, shaking his head. "I no talk again, no. But no say I don't warn you." The threat didn't stop there. Louis found his name scribbled on walls around the campus, paired with derogatory comments. "Louis the beggar. Nancy's poor man." Once, his books were thrown out of the lecture hall, and someone had written, "Come back when you are rich enough to date a queen." But Louis refused to back down. Each time he saw Nancy, her smile reminded him why he was enduring all this time. The fact that she still stood by him, the only one who saw more than his empty pocket, was enough for him to keep pushing forward. Louis woke up one morning to find his phone buzzing with message from Tunde. "I will take that girl away from you. I will use my money to buy her away from you, you poor brat." Tunde was always a smug, flaunting his wealth without care. Louis knew how far Tunde can do. He sat up in bed. He thought of losing Nancy. He had to match up. He needed to do something. He needed real money. That night, Louis met with an old friend, Chuka, who had connections with some shady people. Louis heard rumors about Chuka being involved in strange businesses, but desperate times calls for desperate measures. "Chuka, I need your help," Louis said, his voice low, barely audible, over the noise of the bar they were sitting in. Chuka leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What's this about, Louis?" "I need to make money. Fast. I don't care how. I just need to be able to keep up. Tunde and his rich boys, they are making me feel small. And Nancy." He trailed off, not sure whether he should reveal too much. "She deserves more than I can give her right now." Chuka studied him for a long moment before smirking. I got you, man. There are people who can help, but you got to be ready to do something that will change you forever." Louis didn't hesitate. "Anything, I will do anything." Louis found himself with Chuka's connection more often over the next few days. The men he met were the kind who never showed their faces in public. Whispers followed them wherever they went. One evening, they led him to an old, uncompleted building at the edge of the town. Inside, a man with strange markings on his skin, who introduced himself as the herbalist, sat behind a desk cluttered with books, candles, and strange powders. The smell of the incense hung heavily in the air, thick and pungent. "You seek wealth," the herbalist said in a gravelly voice, his eyes cold and piercing. "But wealth comes at a price, young man. What are you willing to give?" Louis' hand trembled, but he forced himself to speak. "I'm willing to give whatever it takes. I will do anything." The herbalist smiled, his teeth too white against the dark complexion. "Anything? Anything? Are you sure? You must understand that once you make the choice, you have no turning back." Louis nodded, his jaw clenched. He needed this. He needed to prove to Nancy and to everyone, especially Tunde, that he wasn't just some small student trying to survive. The herbalist stood, moving toward a table covered with various items: cowrie shears, herbs, and sharp, gleaming knife. "There is one way to get what you want, but it is not easy. You must make sacrifice, one that will change your life forever." Louis swallowed hard. What kind of sacrifice? The herbalist lowered his voice, becoming more sinister. "A life for wealth." Louis' stomach churned, but his mind was made up. He thought about Tunde, the rich boys, and the life he couldn't give Nancy. Find out what happens next in part 2.